Hello and welcome to Eldritch Extras. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you, Paul?
I'm marvelous. Yes. Um, well, we got a couple of conventions to talk about this episode.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fun never stops. Really, well, we're kind of heading into that autumn season of conventions, aren't we? There's the two we've been to recently, and there's a few more to come. Yeah, they kind of kind of have that kind of spring into summer season, and there's a bit of a lull, and then suddenly it picks up again, isn't it?
Yeah, the gaming season does seem to have shifted into the autumn because, particularly of late, I mean, there was Concrete Cow, which I didn't make this time, but then there's Owlbear and Wizard Staff in Leamington Spa. These are all UK conventions. And then there was the Innsmouth Festival, which was new that we went to.
Yeah.
And then coming up, there's Grogmeet in Manchester, and then there's Dragon Meet, which is now just kind of appearing over the horizon.
Yeah.
Which to me is a kind of sign that Christmas is coming.
Well, yeah. Dragon Meet heralds the start of Christmas, doesn't it, in a sense? But I mean, that's just the UK. I mean, I'm going to Gamehole Con in only a couple of weeks' time in Madison, Wisconsin, where I've been fortunate to be invited as a guest. So that's very nice. So
exciting stuff.
Never been to Wisconsin before, so that'll be new, and it'll be pretty close to Halloween. So I'm looking forward to seeing lots of pumpkins and things like that. And then in Australia, there's the PAX show and various kind of other gaming events happening now. So yeah, it does seem to be a kind of a big uplift in stuff happening from our perspective, I guess. Anyway,
it does. Yeah.
So you went to Owlbear and Wizard Staff. That sounds like a bunch of old D&D players getting together, drinking beer, and mucking around in dungeons. Am I wrong or?
Oh, no.
No, I've never been. It's sort of not quite the right time for me, but so I've never been. But you've been a couple of times.
Yeah, I've been a few times. Yeah, it's nice. So it's a fairly small convention held in Leamington Spa in September. And it starts off on the Friday afternoon at the pub, the Royal Pug, I think it's called. And yeah, looking on like social media, I'm working on the Friday afternoon and I see 2 p.m. Somebody's like, I'm in the pub. I'm getting ready. Like, bloody hell, we haven't even set off yet. So that's a nice get together, and you get together, and there's all that crowd there, and then the evening event is a meal at a Indian restaurant, which was very nice. I think there was about 40 odd people there.
What did you eat?
Well, I had the obligatory onion bhaji for a starter, because that's my go-to starter, and then. I had what Doc had, because we've had this discussion on here that I'm terrible at choosing.
Yeah. Well, I've experienced it in real life too. Yeah,
and I was sat opposite Doc Cowie, and he was ordering something. So we almost went for the Royal Banquet between two of us.
Royal Banquet, wow!
That I think maybe we should have gone for that, but then we went for, I can't remember. It's like,
was it a very, very mild curry, a medium, a nice?
It was kind of medium, medium. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I like it spicy.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah. You're always the one asking for more chilies, as I remember. Yeah. Always, bring them on. Yeah.
And crying. And then we stayed. I don't know if I'm going to stay over again, because the price of hotels now just seems mad. So you go to like a crappy Travel Lodge, Premier Inn type place. It's not that great. Oh, that's right. So we get back to the hotel. It's not that comfortable. It's a bit noisy. And then about, I don't know what the time was, 3:30 a.m, there's some woman banging on our hotel bedroom, on the bedroom door. And my wife gets up and like tells her, "You've got the wrong room."
She's clearly she's running away from some sort of axe murderer, and you
Yes.
just go away. You're
Yes,
that
she did
person in
say
the
she was
film,
like
aren't
covered
you?
in blood and
Yeah.
that, but what can you do? You got the wrong room, bugger off. So that was a great night's sleep. And then so Saturday I turn up at the convention, and I ran a Call of Cthulhu game. And
anything particular?
It's called A Dark Age. It's a new scenario. Well, that's what it's called at the moment. I might change the title. I'll probably consult with you because you're good on titles. I'm not good on coming up with titles. But I thought A Dark Age. That's quite good.
That sounds interesting. Yeah. That's coming out in the book, isn't it? That we're doing.
Well, no.
It's not. Oh,
it's not that one.
It's a different one. Oh, okay.
That's what I said. Titles, So it's coming out in the Blasphemous Tome.
That other thing you do.
The other thing I do, which is I'll pimp this now that I have to pimp everything. So it's the fanzine that myself, Scott, and Matt do for the Good Friends of Jackson Elias podcast, also available on all your good past podcast devices. A Call of Cthulhu centered podcast. So that's a new scenario that and Albert gave me a deadline to work to, which is always good. So I got that up and running, and that seemed to go well. So I was pleased with that. And then in the afternoon, got to play with Dirk. Dirk the Dice.
Yeah, of the Grognard podcast.
Yes, exactly. And I kind of know that there are some GMs. I always feel like I'm in safe hands. And if it's Dirk the Dice running the game, I kind of feel like, it's going to be good.
He does his homework, from what I gather. He preps well. Would that be true?
Yeah, he's kind of the opposite of me, isn't he?
I don't know how you inferred that from what I said. I don't know. But...
No, I don't know. I think there was an inference there. So yeah, he was running Twilight 2000, the new what are they called? The Scandinavian lot, huh?
The Free League.
Free League, yes, the Free League new version.
That's the game. I only ever played it once back in the original edition, back in the day. And I seem to remember it was quite fun, but it wasn't really my kind of game. It was mainly kind of soldier types running around with lots of tech. And I seem to remember running around a lot in the woods a lot and not a lot happening. But that's my memory of it. I'm sure it's better than that. But was your game a lot of running around in the woods with big guns, or?
It wasn't the woods. It was kind of a bit post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
We were soldiers frozen in 1983.
Oh.
And we were awakened at some future date when quite a lot of time had passed, and the fallout had gone, and we're reactivated. And we had to imagine that we were people from the early 80s, which you can imagine was a real stretch. So that was kind of fun, but it had mashed it up with the Morrow Project.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know what the Morrow Project is. Well, I do a bit now, right? I kind of thought it was one of those early 80s or mid 80s TV shows that I hadn't really understood or hadn't watched, because I heard people talking about it. But it's a role-playing game that was out around that time. It's
an old role-playing game.
Yeah.
It's one of them that, you see in the pages you see in an advert, but you never saw in the gaming store. Back in the days of White Dwarf and Dragon magazine, in that kind of 80s period, you'd go through and the adverts were part of the cool stuff about the magazine, because you see all these new games, and a lot of them were obviously American. But you go to your local game store and you'd never see them. And so they only existed in this kind of in the ether. You kind of knew about them, but you never saw them.
Yeah,
and certainly that's the same for the Morrow Project for me. I've never seen a physical copy.
Right.
So I know, yeah.
But it was kind of a search and rescue mission, and it was quite fun. I quite enjoyed it. And then we came home and went to a pub quiz. So it was all good.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, marvelous.
So thanks to Matthew for running and organising the convention.
I hear it's quite well organised from what you tell me. So it's
the key thing, and any other convention organisers could learn from this, is a signature feature of Owlbear and Wizard staff: samosas.
What, a steady supply throughout the day?
At lunchtime, he just comes in and he's got these big boxes. They're all free for for people who are at the con. There's big boxes. There's meat samosas and vegetable samosas, and you just take a little plate and you get a couple of samosas. Brilliant.
Wow. Well, you can't go wrong with that, can you? Surely.
You can't go wrong with a samosa. I love a samosa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a place, if you ever at Leicester Square Tube Station, as you come out of the ticket things, so you're in that the main part of the tube station. There's a convenience store there, and when I worked in London for a while, I used to, I don't know why, I'd end up at Leicester Square, and always go in there and get a samosa, and they're quite big and quite filling, and they were about £1. And then I went down the other week and got one, and I think they were about £2.50 or something, and I thought, that's a lot more, isn't it? And then I realized that it was about 20 years ago. But still good value. And they put it in the microwave for like about 10 seconds, so it's slightly lukewarm inside, which is always good. And yeah.
Well, you're selling it to me on that alone. I mean,
I know. I'd say they were heated up, but that's a bit of a stretch. But they're for London. That's a good price for
£2.50 for a samosa.
Can't go wrong with that.
I guess yeah. You know where to find the bargains, Paul. That's all I say.
I think that's why people are coming to this show for those kind of tips.
So well for this show, yeah, clearly they want a bit of the Fricker lifestyle, and how to get that and listen. Why not? Yes. I mean, who wouldn't? So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, well, that Owlbear and Wizard Stout, that sounds good. I mean, I really hope to try and get along one day if it ever happens when I can. But we did manage to get to a different show, though, didn't we? We went to the Innsmouth Literary Festival, which was only last weekend, and
indeed,
that was the very first one, the inaugural one. What was your impressions? What did you get up to, Paul?
My overall impression was it was just a really nice, kind of relaxed show. Not that I don't want to imply anything bad by saying it was relaxed. It wasn't like low energy or something, but it was just a friendly place with lots of people, and it wasn't just gaming, which I think was nice. I like gaming, but it wasn't just gaming. So there was lots of other things going on. So there was, just off the top of my head, there was a couple of seminars, there were poetry readings, book readings. There were lots of stands, lots of trader stands. There was some music in the evening. There were games, and I'm sure there were some things I haven't mentioned. So it was a big menu of different things all going on together. What about yourself, Mike? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think for a first show, the guys who put it on, Rob, Shelley, and Tim, did a really good job. I mean, it obviously what it reminds me of is like a quite a small scale version of Necronomicon Providence in America, because it's the same concept. It's a kind of weird fiction / Lovecraftiana kind of festival in a sense, and obviously not on the scale of Necronomicon, and they've been going for a lot longer, and I've got a lot more kind of resource to kind of put on that much kind of bigger show. But this was nicely formed. The concept was good, and it was you kind of had that really good vibe, because I mean you're in a convention that's just about horror, weird horror, and that kind of stuff. Which so everywhere you turn, you're kind of seeing something that is what you're into, kind of thing. So you're not. You're not like a standard convention where, you've got the bits that you want to go and do, the games you want to play, and then there's a lot of other stuff that's cool, but it's not really your thing. Everything was kind of your thing. That's why, I think it feels good to go. I I had the Chaosium hat on, and I ended up kind of running we had a little Chaosium booth, and unfortunately, David, who tends to run our UK events, couldn't make it to the show due to the rail strike. So I kind of stepped in to kind of cover that. So we just had a little booth with some Call of Cthulhu books on, and mainly sat on the stand and chatted to people. And obviously there's quite a few people I knew, because it's a small community in the UK. So it was great to see Chris Lackey turn up from the co-author on Cult of Cthulhu book, and the Weird Fiction Stories podcast that he does with Chad, catching up with him and various other people. And so I did that, but I did dip out because I was also technically a guest there. So I ended the day with a panel that I did, which was the impact of weird fiction in other media. So, like in games and anime and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really interesting panel, because I was really the game person on the panel. There was a manga kind of artist, a playwright who's adapted lots of kind of Lovecraft stories into plays and so on. So it was quite a diverse panel in terms of our media. And so that was really interesting, and had some really good questions. So that was cool. And then, in fact, just after that, the playwright was doing some short excerpt readings from some of the plays they'd written, and they needed a narrator. So I somehow, I don't know how it happened. 1 minute I was standing there talking, the next I was like being heralded to a stage to hold a script and be the narrator for these play excerpts, and which was great fun. And the best highlight for me was the last one, which was a play based on Herbert West's Reanimator, and so I got to play a reanimated zombie thing. I had a few args before I was shot dead, but so that was good fun. And also managed, because the person kind of doing all that is the person responsible for the London Lovecraft Festival, which is, as I understand it, where some of these plays are put on over the course of a week or so around London. And sounds pretty cool. Again, I've not managed to kind of make it to any of those previously, but there's another one next year. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that develops, and maybe try and get down to see a play or two and see what else we can maybe get some gaming involved, and maybe around that sort of time around London. That would be cool. So I don't know, there's lots of possibilities, and that's what's really cool about these events, where you're in a room with a bunch of people who like the same kind of things, but they're not quite the same. They're allied. Yeah. So the possibility of just finding out more about what other people are doing and how you can kind of work together to do more cool stuff, is really interesting. So I had a really good time. I thought it was really good fun.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I enjoyed most, is that because, like, when you're at a gaming convention, so take Owlbear, the week before, you're either in a game, and if you're in a game, you're with like 5 other people maybe, or you're not in a game, in which case you're stood around chatting, maybe at a bar or restaurant, just chatting with people. There's nothing else. There's no other activities to participate in. Whereas with this festival, the Innsmouth Festival, or Necronomicon, there are so many other things to do, and there's so many people from other walks of life that aren't gamers, that like you said, like theatre people or writers or whatever, and they're not just talking about their things, they're doing them. And I think anybody who's into Lovecraftian gaming, Cthulhu gaming, Call of Cthulhu, generally is interested in those other things too.
Yeah, there's a lot of even if it's just going around the booths and finding some cool T-shirt or some dice or some books or some and there was all of that there, wasn't there? There was booksellers selling Arkham House books and Ramsey Campbell stuff, and in fact Ramsey Campbell was the guest of honor, wasn't he? Although he wasn't there, they did a live kind of video link to Ramsey Campbell, and he did a answering questions and talking about his career and so forth, which was really cool. So yeah, it's nice to get all. And of course, we haven't really talked about the gaming, but there was a whole room with lots of Call of Cthulhu being played. I mean, you ran a game. Matt Sanderson was there running. I think he was running Saturnine Chalice from Deadlight book. And on the table next to him was somebody else who was running Deadlight. So literally, you could get
I think
two scenarios out of the book at the convention, which I thought was quite cool. What did
that was Steph, I think. Yeah.
What did you end up running?
I ran Hotel of Horror, which is going to feature in Mansions of Madness 2, the upcoming Call of
Cthulhu
book. Yes. Which is a great little scenario. I say little because it is quite one of those ones that's quite self-contained, fairly linear, but a fun kind of convention one-shot. And people seem to have a good time with that. That's the second time I've run it at a convention now. So that was fun. I was going to say, I was going to come back to what you were saying about the trade hall, the range of stuff there, because there were the things you mentioned. There was also, there was somebody selling T-shirts, and I was like, oh, these are interesting. He's, I do. Are you the artist? And he's like, yeah, I'm the artist. And you screen print them at home. And he was doing all of that. There was somebody with a house they rent out in Wales doing kind of almost like murder mystery weekends, but like crafty and experience.
Not quite LARP, but the kind of sort of LARP, but not really, and murder mystery. And they've got a new one. And what was interesting, they've got a new one they're doing next year, which I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically Lovecraft inspired. So it will be really interesting to see how that develops. And again, that looked really interesting. Yeah.
So you go along and they have actors there playing the roles of people in the house, and you can stay overnight. And that sounds like a marvelous venture.
There's people selling Cthulhu cross stitch. So if you want a cross stitch pattern with Cthulhu or some sort of Eldritch tome or whatever, they had all of those.
Pretty much everything you can imagine.
It was great. Yeah, a lot of and that's what many conventions. Not just the cool books and game publishers and fiction publishers, but you get these kind of ancillary creative people who are doing their thing, whether it's making art or T-shirts or whatever it is. And there's always something cool, isn't there? There's always something.
Chris Lackey and Greg Johnson doing their film screenings. I think of some of the. I didn't get to see them, but I think I've seen them before, and they're available on YouTube. The screenings of like Pickman's Model. They've done some comedy takes on Pickman's Model, Color Out of Space, not Color Out of Space, the one with the resonator, Tillinghast resonator. From Beyond. And they're absolutely brilliant, but I don't think they've got the viewings that they deserve. I mean, they're quite popular, but I don't think they've achieved what they deserve to achieve in terms of sort of the support and fandom, because they're brilliantly produced. And they're just very funny and well acted and well made, and they're just great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you've not seen them, check them out on YouTube. They're very good. Yeah.
And I feel we should give a shout out to you mentioned the hosts Rob and Tim, who do the Innsmouth Book Club, which is a podcast. Which is what it sounds like. It's a book club centered around weird fiction and Lovecraft, and they have a guest on each episode. And I think we've both been guests on there. It was a really good conversation. It was it wasn't just what new books have you got coming out, which is cool, but they kind of got into some really interesting subject matter, and we had a good chat about stuff. So I really enjoyed that. It was really nice.
Yeah. Well, Paul, it's the 4th of October. Do you know what that means?
Oh my God. No. What does it mean?
It means it's Halloween soon.
Oh, well, you said I was going to pick up on that, because you said you're going to Gamehole Con in over the rainbow somewhere in America.
That's right.
You're going to be there. Are you going to be there for Halloween? Because I've always wanted to be in America for Halloween.
Again, I've just grasping at trying to be somewhere in the US for Halloween to kind of experience the US version of Halloween.
Yeah.
I've never quite managed.
We need to do it.
This is the nearest I've got. This will be the nearest I've got to being in the US
Right.
Halloween. So still not quite. Still a goal to go for. But yeah. So
because I've been to like, just to draw a parallel, theme parks. I've been to Alton Towers, and I don't know, some other ones in the UK. Well, yeah, they're all right. They're quite good. And then you go to Disneyland in California or Florida, and you're like, oh, right, okay, so this is what a theme park should be like. Because you can't really make a comparison. It's just like they do it so much better. And Halloween here, I mean, when I was a kid, quite a long time ago, I don't think Halloween was even a thing in Britain.
No, it wasn't. No.
And I remember when I was a student, I moved into my own place, and it was in Doncaster or somewhere, one of those places up in Yorkshire that I was living. And some kids came around doing trick or treat. I really actually wasn't sure what the deal was, because that was the first time I'd ever encountered it.
Right. Yeah.
I'd kind of heard of it, but it wasn't a thing to me, because I didn't grow up in a town, maybe, but we certainly didn't get them coming around, in the countryside.
No, so as when you open the door and these kids there in their masks or whatever go to the tree, you didn't know what it was, and you just kind of shut the door on them in the kind of like, I went, oh, go away, I don't, who are you? then did they then kind of,
I think we found something for them,
menace you for the rest of the night.
We gave them some, I don't know,
you gave them some
avocado or something.
I've just got some samosas. Have these kids in the LH go, what's that? I want sweets. I don't know. So I don't do a challenge or any kind of set thing in how over the month of October, but I do try and watch a few horror films that either normally what happens is I try and find some horror films I've not yet seen, which is pretty hard to do because all the good ones I've probably already seen in the year before, and I'm left with the kind of the dregs or the unknowns, and I kind of do a little scan of them and realize, no, that looks terrible, so I won't bother watching it. So I just end up watching what you might term classic horror films, the ones I know are good, I know I will enjoy, and that I haven't watched for at least a year, kind of thing. So, I mean, do you make an effort to watch a little bit more horror over the month, or not?
I mean, you do surprise me a little bit, Mike, because when you see a film that looks particularly terrible and dreadful, horror films, it seems to me like you go, yes, let's watch that.
No, there are degrees of terrible,
right?
And unfortunately, what you find, particularly on streaming services, you get like top end horror films that everyone knows about because they're released in cinema, and we all heard about them, and we either saw them already or we want to see them. And there's a few of those, and then at the far end, you've got like the really terrible films that are so bad they're fun to watch. And then in the middle, you got this massive weight of what you might just call mediocre, that kind of like are just the same story told again or pretty badly done. And probably you watch one and it just reconfirms why you shouldn't be watching any more of those.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad horror.
I mean, I get one or two a try, but
I guess maybe there's just a lot of films that I don't enjoy, but there's a lot of horror films that I don't enjoy. I mean, the good ones, fantastic. Yeah. In fact, this is going to be useful for people because I can't remember what it was called, but there was on Netflix, what I flicked it on last night, recommended for you, I think quite a new film. And the premise is that there's a woman who's been through a traumatic experience, and every day when she wakes up, she can't remember anything from yesterday.
And you immediately think of Memento, don't you? Like,
well, you do. That's basically what I said to Lucy. This sounds like Memento, but I like Memento, and so I'm gonna give this one a watch.
Well, let me know, because I saw that too, and I immediately thought Memento, and immediately then moved on.
Yeah.
So do watch it for me, and if it's any good, let me know, and I'll give it a go. But I wasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't drag me in. So yeah. Well, last night I ended up watching a little double bill of my own design, completely unplanned. So I watched a film I'd never seen before and a film I had seen before. So that's a good mix.
That's a good mix.
Good balance.
That's a good mix.
The film I hadn't seen before was the first one, and I watched the American remake of Martyrs, which is based the original, which we'd both seen before. The French version of Martyrs, which was I don't know, how would you describe the French version of Martyrs in a word or two?
Grueling,
yeah, grueling.
In a fantastically grueling.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. There's not many people I would openly just recommend that movie to, because it is a very difficult watch in a way that I'd say few other films are, because probably the first, I don't know how long, 3/4 of an hour, maybe even an hour, are just unremittingly unpleasant. But the payoff at the end is just brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's what saves the film from being in that kind of torture, kind of, hostile kind of vibe of film, because it's got I don't know, it seems to have loftier aspirations when you get to the end, which give it a sense of meaning. And I thought the French version is very good, but again, I wouldn't recommend it to most people. It is, as you say, grueling and a hard watch.
Matt Sanderson absolutely loved it.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, he did. He really, because we did an episode about it on the Good Friends of Jackson Elias. We did it for an episode, and I'm never quite sure what Matt's going to enjoy and what he doesn't, because he tends to like it. It's like he's got a little switch on his head. So this is I love it, and this is I hate it, and it's one of those switches you can't put in between. It's either love it or hate it. It just flicks the other, which I totally respect. But he totally loved this.
Oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't. Well, the American remake is, I guess, okay. It is nowhere near as good as the French version. It is still grueling, but not as grueling. And there's a lot more. It seemed to me there's a lot more kind of explanation in the film to kind of explain things. I'm sure there's quite a lot in the French version, but it's been a while since I saw it. But the ending is the second half, because it is a film with two halves. Without going into details, the second half does follows the same track, but it is different in terms of what happens to who is different, and the ending, whilst somewhat similar and the same, is different.
Oh, really?
Whereas the French, you might say, ends quite bleakly, to use a word. The American version, it ends bleakly, but then there's a kind of more of a hopeful, I would say upbeat, but kind of more, compared to the French, more upbeat ending. But I wouldn't necessarily. If anyone, I wouldn't recommend Martyrs to, as you and I both said, to the majority of people. If I were to recommend it to someone I thought would, be interested in that film, I would always recommend the French version and steer people away from the US one. Maybe if they're a little bit more sensitive than I might suggest the American rather than the French one if they want to kind of slightly lighter.
I'm intrigued to watch the American one then.
It's worth a watch. It's not. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a bad film. It's just when you're comparing two films that are exactly the same, there's always you tend to. I find people tend to recommend the one they saw first. So maybe if I'd have seen the American one first, I might have thought that was a better version. I don't know, but I saw the French original one first, and I think that's a better version.
Because I'm not going to watch. I don't think I'm going to bother watching the American version of Old Boy.
No, I've not watched that.
I don't see the point. Maybe I should. I enjoyed the American version of The Ring.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Because that seemed to be different enough. But this version of, I feel like the French version of Martyr, on South Park, I think it sort of says at the start of each episode, not suitable for anybody. That's what they should.
I think that is.
Never
that
mind the
content
content warnings.
the
I
front
mean, the
of
content
Martyrs.
warnings
Yeah.
on, when they put them up
Not
at the top
suitable
of
for anyone.
Martyrs, it would just be like fill the whole screen, I feel like. But yeah.
Yes, yeah. So the other film, just to kind of round it up, was I watched the 2004 remake or reimagining of Dawn of the Dead, the Zack Snyder directed version. Obviously, the original Romero Dawn of the Dead is a classic and it's fantastic. And the remake, I think, is equally fantastic. I think they both tell the kind of same story, but they're both of their times, and I think they're both good. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. Maybe the original edges it out slightly just because it's original, but I really like the new version because it's really pacey and there's no fat on it. It just goes bang bang bang, and I think I saw it at the cinema, and that first kind of section when the film opened, and then it kind of goes into the credits with Johnny Crash playing The Man Comes Around. It's just one of the most perfect openings for a horror film, particularly a zombie film.
You call him Johnny Crash, I think.
Johnny what?
I think you said Johnny Crash.
Johnny Cash.
Is it Johnny Crash?
Johnny Cash.
Yes.
Yes.
I think you said Johnny Crash. It sounds like his kind of Halloween name.
No, he only does that on October 31st. Yeah. Johnny Cash. The Man Comes Around, and it's just a great opening title sequence.
Is this the one in the shopping centre?
That is, the one in the mall. Yeah,
they all get kind of muddled up in my head, but I do remember the one in the shopping centre as being great. Yeah, and I think I've seen both versions. But,
are you sure?
That's something. Yeah, I'm sure I have, and that is I think I might put that down for a.
I definitely reckon because it's on in the UK. It's the remake is on Netflix. And the original Dawn of the Dead is on Prime.
Excellent.
But what you may need to know about the original, there are 3 versions, all for free to watch on Prime.
What?
So there's the original theatrical release. There's the Argento cut, the Dario Argento cut of the film, which is more. I think I've not seen that one.
Is it weirder?
And then there's like an extended cut. So, I mean, obviously I've seen the original, and then the one I chose to watch on Prime a little while ago was the extended cut,
right?
Which was great. I think the Dario version, as I understand it, is either you kind of love and hate depending on your preferences. I don't know, but I haven't got around to watching that one yet. But that, I mean, the original's got the fantastic music.
That's great. I love that.
So, I think they're both got their very cool things, and thoroughly enjoyed that.
Some great recommendations for people to watch during anytime really, but during the October Halloween season.
Well, there you are. So,
I think should we draw it to a close there?
Well, I think we're best because people will be getting bored by now, won't they?
I would have thought so. Blimey. We should point out at the start of this episode, obviously we didn't, that this is just some extras. This is like some extra stuff, like a side dish, if you like, to accompany the main, which is really the Eldritch stories that we put out, the short stories that we write and read that come out every 2 weeks. The last one was The Driver by myself, read by Mr. Mason. And we've got, I think, 6 more stories to come. Season 1 is 12 stories.
Yeah. And if you you like the stories, or even if you like us talking about what we've been talking about, then please do let somebody else know, and tell them to maybe subscribe and hear them out. And but even more importantly, tell us what you think. Drop us some info, what you want to hear, or what you thought about what you heard. We've got a Facebook page, and we've got the Substack, and you can leave comments accordingly, and we love to get them. So please do.
Yeah, because we're still in the early days yet. It's kind of like a little toddler. It's growing rapidly, and it needs looking after. It's a weird analogy, I know, but
it's a thing in the well. It's a small kind of. It landed on the meteorite, and it's just
I see. That's
bubbling
much
away at
than
the bottom of the well at the moment. But as it gets bigger and stronger, it'll take more shape and form.
So people need to throw things into the well.
Throw things into the well to feed it. Feed it information. That's what we're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the name of how can they find us on Facebook?
They can find us at Mason and Fricker's Eldritch Stories. There's a Facebook group, where you can go along and you can join the group and get notifications. There's eldritchstories.com, the website. And there's me and you on various social media. I did set up some groups on social media, but do they need special groups on all the social media? I don't know. I think it's just easier if me and you share it. So if you follow me or Mike, then you'll get those updates.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, until next time, thanks for listening or watching. And don't forget,
keep it Eldritch.